you all. Ravi, I'm going to start with a very basic question. Everybody is confused about, you know what. Can you guess my question? AI. Okay. What is the real world? If you have to connect AI into what it means for India, what it means for world, there are naysayers who say we've seen it before, and there are some, new gen AI developers who say that you've never seen something like this before. So what is the real world, and how will India and IT move because of AI?
So thank you, Nikunj, for that question. I mean, it's certainly different to the past tech discontinuities which have happened. The past ones mostly helped the ones who had the skills, because technology needed digital skills for you to equip yourself. I mean, mobiles really were in the hands of end users, but they always gave you information. They didn't give you jobs. They didn't create more jobs. This is technology where you're going to use. It's going to be in the hands of the end user. You don't need any other skill except natural language to talk to it. You can talk to it in your own dialect, in your own vernacular. And because you can do so, I think we'll create some kind of a creator economy. Why is this going to be fascinating for India? India is actually a data economy. A lot of data is actually in the hands of the users. India will therefore leverage this much better than anyone else. India is also an economy which wants to be a creator economy. It's very entrepreneurial. So you're going to actually offload it to the end user. There's been never a technology in the past where humans were trying to understand computers. Computers are going to try to understand humans. So our ability to absorb that, diffuse it very fast is going to be very high. Because India's the national digital infrastructure is very strong, it's very inclusive, you're going to diffuse it much faster. And therefore, I believe it's going to be very, very powerful to the future of India.
Can I just make a comment
please.
on that? So I have 5 children, and my 3 daughters are a singer, an actress, and a documentary filmmaker. So when my son became a computer science major, I was really excited because I thought finally one of them is going to support himself. And now I realize that the better job will be the creative job, because you can go to GitHub and do your programming for you. It's completely switches.
And 40% of the code can be written by AI algorithm, which means the 21 million developers the world has is not necessary. Anybody can write code. Today, forget about the development of AI for the future. Today, people can write code on GitHub. 40% of the code is ready. So you are going to see the future where finding new purposeful problems will be the human endeavor, and solving problems will be done by machines and humans together.
So AI is real, it's here to stay, and her son will get a job.
Sorry,
AI is not going to eat into the manpower job. Her son will still get a job.
Yeah. He makes rum.
All right. Mr. Winter, they say that in India, if 1980s it belonged to Japan, 1990s belonged to US, if the last decade was dominated by China, well, the next century will be dominated by India. And I'm saying century on purpose. Would you agree with me? Will you strongly agree with me?
I think the audience has given you the answer. I must say, as I sit here in Delhi, and as I mentioned earlier, I come regularly, I've never been more encouraged. In fact, I've been coming for 40 years regularly, so I've seen a few ups and downs. I've never been more encouraged about not only the potential of India, but the reality today of India. It's amazing what's been accomplished. So I think India has everything to play for, but the biggest mistake India could make is to be complacent and to assume that it's done. We've arrived, we've put the structural reforms in place, the population is becoming increasingly educated, et cetera. These are necessary conditions, but it's not enough to take India to that vaunted status of being the economic driver of the world over the next, call it 50 years, which I think is a reasonable time frame. And I think we could spend a lot of time talking about what India is doing, what it needs to do more in order to cement that position. But I have no doubt that what you set out is, it is for India to take if we get the program right.
Thank you very much. Ms. Johnson, I'd like to just build a construct for the audience here about the real economy and the financial economy. The financial economy in America is actually higher than the real economy. In India, the real economy is actually at par with the financial economy. Do you see that in coming decades and coming years, both for your firm and for Indian financial markets? Sky is not the limit, but space is the limit. That is the space which we are aiming at. It's going to grow exponentially.
Well, so if you're defining the financial economy as markets, for
yes,
investment
financial
markets, right? So, there's always, it's sort of like we talk about investing in technology, that sometimes the technology is really exciting and a great opportunity, but there's not a good time to invest in it. Like it's a harder thing to invest in. So separating those things, I think there are a lot of interesting risks, say, in the U.S. market, where you have 7 stocks, they call them the Magnificent Seven, driven by great growth in technology and are great companies, but have accounted for 71% of the returns. And so, you look at it and you say, well, that could be a risk. They're trading at something like, I think, 49 times earnings or on average. So there could be some risk there. On the other hand, you look at it and you say the economy in the U.S. seems like it's doing pretty well and is pretty strong. And whether you'll get the kind of earnings growth that you've had over the last decade, probably not. I go back to kind of Bill's point on India and just say, and a lot of people ask, is the market expensive for for the growth opportunities? I just, to emphasize Bill's point about the economic opportunity in India, if you look at the last decade and you say the last decade was China, why? Why was it China over India? You've got a young demographic, independent rule of law, some of the best education systems in the world, graduating more engineers. I think it's 6 times the number of engineers than they do in the U.S. Why did India lag China in the last decade? And you look at it, and honestly, it's because you'd argue it was an unorganized economic policies. And so if you think about it today, of any economy, India's probably got the greatest opportunity, and you're starting to see genuine optimism because of coordinated economic policies that are very specific, like Gift City. Bill and I were talking about this morning. If you think, okay, we want to get foreign investment into India, you create an economic policy like Gift City, and to the extent that it's executed well, capital goes where capital's treated well. It will come in. If you need to spur the domestic economy, you create policies such that you spur that kind of growth to get the outcomes that you want, and growth begets more growth. So I think that it's, if you think about walking in each country as a kitchen and you're a chef coming in creating economic policies, there's no better stocked kitchen than India for opportunities because the fundamental tailwinds behind it, provided it continue to get it right.
So for India, I started a SIP, systematic investment plan, very early part of my life.
Franklin Templeton brought that to India. I will point that out.
No, I actually started in Franklin Templeton. I must share it.
You did.
It's a 25-year-old scheme, started with a modest amount of 2,000 rupees. But if I have to start a scheme for my son, what should I tell him now?
First of all, the most important thing, we were talking about it earlier, compounding. So if you start investing at age 25 and you put $5,000 away for 10 years every year and you get a 7% return, you will have more money than a person who starts at 35 and saves $5,000 a year for 30 years. So the most important thing is that your son gets in the market. and invest in the market, and then from a time horizon, stays invested. And the reason I love SIPs is because you actually buy more stocks when the market goes down. That's when so many people retreat. And often they're selling when the market's down and buying when it's high. Just consistent, every paycheck, making an investment, you will do just fine over the long run in the market.
Well, power of compounding, we always talk about that. Rizwan, let's talk about the real estate market. You understand the real estate market. You've excelled in the Dubai market. What prompted you to go to Dubai? Why have you excelled? And what is unique about Indians doing very well in Dubai?
Well, I went to Dubai almost 30 years ago. And when I went to Dubai 30 years ago, what I liked about Dubai is they welcomed the people like me who are very simple people, not that educated people. Like I would give you an example. The first time when I landed in Dubai, after the immigration clearance, you need to go and show the passport to the one police officer over there. The police officer tells you, kaisa hai? He's a local guy, and he tells you, kaisa hai aap? And that, what actually impressed me, because before going to Dubai, I was in Kuwait for the 8 years, and I've never found a local guy or a Kuwaiti guy telling me in our own language, Indian guy, either this is the place I want to be, and this is the place I'm going to make my career. Now, this is not the case only of me. Many Indians like me who have made their base or made themselves big in Dubai or UAE, because the way they make the business so easy, friendly, they allow people like us to work without any bureaucracy, and there is a lot of harmony between all of us. And today, touchwood, alhamdulillah, you all know that Danube Building Material is one of the most famous or the fastest developing real estate developer in Dubai.
What is the size of land bank you have in Dubai? How much are you planning to develop?
At the moment, we have so far developed 30 projects and hopefully another 4-5 projects this year. So every year we are talking about a turnover of about $3 to $3.5 billion.
Bill, I'll throw this point wide open, which we discussed with Mr. Ray Dalio, which is that if you consider the construct of the global economy, there is United States, which has a debt, Europe, where growth is anemic, China, where growth is confusing, India is where growth is visible. How would you characterize the big block for us when things are not really moving up in a synchronized manner post-COVID?
You're right that things aren't moving in a synchronized manner, but they're not uncorrelated either. So at the end of the day, the U.S. has surprised, I think, most observers with its resilience. You had a shock interest rate adjustment on the back of some inflation, and U.S. growth hasn't really faltered. Job growth is very strong. Consumer optimism is good. So the U.S. is in good shape. China's the other way around. The rate of growth in China is a little bit less than 2 times the rate of growth in the U.S., but the level of confidence is zero. There's no confidence amongst Chinese investors or amongst international investors investing into China. Why? Because it's confusing, exactly as you say. I think it's confusing because China is going through that enormous transition that every country goes through when it moves from effectively whatever the old economy is at the day to the new economy at the day. The China new economy segment, which is a third of the economy, is growing super fast, right? Double digits. The old economy is shrinking, led by the property sector and infrastructure. So the average is 5.2% growth. Not a disaster, but not exciting either. So it's confusing. When will we come out of this? No, when they're well into the transition. I'd say another year or two. Europe is a wonderful place to live. It's not a great place to grow, but exporting technology, exporting human capital, and Europe will be there for a very long time. But the global economy overall is going to grow at about what the IMF would say is potential. So we can say that things are very, very bleak, and we can all point to the geopolitical risks that are concerning all of us. Shifting trade flows, high interest rates, inflation. I mean, these are all real, and they could manifest themselves in quite a severe economic shock at some point. But it's not happening today. The global growth the global economy is growing pretty much where it's supposed to, and the outlook, I think, is relatively bright. So I think it's time to be aware of the risks out there, but keep on investing. Where does India play into that? Geopolitically, perfectly positioned. I would say. Of course there are tensions. You've got some problems on both sides of your border, but the geopolitical positioning of India is very strong right now. The economic foundations are good. Growth at 6.2, 6.5, maybe going to 7% is good, but you shouldn't be satisfied with that. It's well below India's potential, in my opinion. So the focus has got to be, how do we get that 6% growth up to 10, 11, 12, which is what we need to do to get GDP per capita up to a level that's consistent with other countries that are similarly well endowed.
So I have the last round of questions, and Bill, I'll start with you, with your thoughts on the Indian financial sector. When I say financial sector, the banking sector, because we feel very proud when we look at the Indian banking sector. Extremely well regulated, open architecture, open to innovation, is saying all the right things in the fintech, and perhaps it's really the governance which has made all the difference when it comes to the growth here. Would you agree with me?
I think the Indian banking sector is extremely strong. And certainly in my time operating in India, I started off 30 years ago with a joint venture with an Indian bank, a little bank called ICICI. And I was at JP Morgan at the time, and JP Morgan had the technology, and ICICI had the local operation. And we had a joint venture, which eventually JP Morgan bought, which was a construct at the time. You fast forward 30 years, ICICI is a global bank. It's world class in terms of its capabilities. There's nothing that ICICI, and I use that as an example, it could be any of the big Indian banks, there's nothing that they can't do given the resources, technology, and regulatory framework. That said, the capital markets in India are not fully developed. It's not a truly international market. The rupee is not an international currency. It's not a currency of trade. These are all necessary components for India to become a truly global financial player. India doesn't have to be a global financial player, but typically global powers accumulate that position over time. And I think this is a huge opportunity for India over the next decade or two.
Can I jump
Yes,
in
please.
to answer something? In similar lines, so if you go back again to 40, 50 years, the world has seen a period of change or a period of uncertainty. There are very few times change and uncertainty have come together. And this is one of those times.
Change and uncertainty
coming together.
That's a beautiful part. Change and uncertainty coming
together.
Okay.
And to navigate that, India probably has a lot of things lined up for it. And that's why I think India is going to be very successful in the next 1 decade. And I'll say quickly 4 things which will help India. First, because we are in a slow economy across the world is pretty much flat. 2% global growth, inflation adjusted is 0. A lot of slow growth means operations of the world in a demographic dividend India has. A lot of operations is going to move to India. It's not just technology and IT. So the 5 million people who work in IT and IT-enabled services will probably be 10 million or more in the next few years. That's the first one. So as the world slows down, we're going to see a lot of human capital powered by good education, not just technology, but ops. Second, India's per capita is only $2,000, which means it's the right time for discretionary consumer spend to take off. That means India is also going to be a consumer economy as we go forward, which is actually going to propel growth. Now, the world is actually moving from a bipolar, China-US to a multipolar world, which means, again, the manufacturing capacity, supply chains will get distributed. As they get distributed, if India invests heavily on skilling, manufacturing can actually be a significant part of the GDP of India. So that's the third piece in the mix. Remember, even the pyramid which India has, only 5 million households earn more than $35,000, which means if the pyramid really goes into a diamond and the middle of the pyramid gets to spend more, there is a forecast which actually says that 5 billion will probably be 5 times more in the next 10 years. The last is it's also a very inclusive economy because the digital infrastructure allows you to make it transaction-based, low cost, high volume, which means it can again diffuse to the bottom of the pyramid very fast. So the digital infrastructure can actually again create a flywheel on consumption. So these 4 things in a period of change and uncertainty makes India almost the office of the world, you can call it, or the ops center of the world, the factory of the world, and the consumer of the world, if I may. And that makes it.
Such a brilliant point. You've really sketched the architecture for us so beautifully. Energy transition, per capita, manufacturing, and being the back office of the world. I just want our audience to write this number. Just write this number. $250 billion. Now, why am I insisting on $250 billion? Well, that's the size of Indian IT exports last year. $250 billion was the total oil export from Aramco. So Indian IT industry now is actually equivalent to the total amount of oil actually which has been exported. That's something which we don't realize. But $250 billion, and this is last year's data, and we'll have to add another 7-8% here.
And in fact, Nikunj, what's going to happen is, it's not just IT services companies like ours. There's 1,600 global capability centers,
which we don't add up,
set by American, European global corporations in India to run their ops. And that's a much bigger universe. Running ops is literally 30% of the, of the profit and loss of every company, versus technology being a small portion of it.
So a very quick answer from you. For Indian IT industry, where the size is $250 billion, do you think the next 5 years will be better than the last 5 years? Just a quick answer.
100%, because big tech companies are going to set up shop here. Tech services companies like Cognizant will add more. And our own clients will actually set up shop here, because they will insource technology as much as they outsource. They will insource ops as much as they outsource. And their own insourced ops and insourced technology will be based in India.
Mm-hmm. Cognizant is listed, guys, remember. Cognizant is a listed stock. The CEO says next 5 years will be better than the last 5 years. It is not a tip. It is not a tip. It is just an indication that which way the IT industry is moving. Do you want me to ask you a question, or you want to say something about India more?
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, Franklin Templeton has 20% of our global workforce in India. At one point, we had 30%. We ended up outsourcing, but we outsourced to people in India. Yep. And if you think about things like AI and the technology investments that it's going to take to compete, it's going to get more and more expensive. And as long as you have the talent and the value here, it's going to grow in India. I mean, so I completely agree with your points.
I have a time constraint, and the timer is shamelessly saying time up. But I have some question for you. अब आप दुबई में क्या करते हो? इंडिया कब वापस आओगे? इतना बता दो. दुबई में क्या कर रहे हो? इंडिया वापस कब आओगे?
इंडिया कब आएंगे? इंडिया जब बुलाओगे तो आ जाएंगे. फिलहाल दुबई में है. लास्ट 30 ईयर से दुबई में हूँ. और वहाँ पे अच्छा ग्रोथ मिल रहा है तो वहाँ बैठा हूँ. किसी ने मुझे पूछा when are you going to come to Dubai? India, of course we have an operations in India. We have a Danube home operations in Hyderabad and Bangalore, which we are running. But the real estate portfolio we have in Dubai only. And what I have seen that the Indians love to invest in Dubai because of the culture, because no taxation policy, because of the India and to Dubai. We have almost 200 flights from all over India to Dubai. They love to come over there, setting up a business very easy. They are very happy over there. I know here we are talking about on a GBS platform where we are talking about the Indian, but since you have called me and talking about Dubai, so I need to talk about Dubai. But Dubai is a great place to come.
Dubai में भी Indians ही real estate ले रहे हैं ना? Dubai में भी Indians ही real estate.
Dubai में Indians, actually 40% of the Indians are buying real estate in Dubai. They are the highest number of real estate buyers today so they are contributing a lot to the Dubai. And because of Sri Narendra Modi ji coming to Dubai in the last 10 years, he has come almost 10 times to in UAE. That has strengthened the relationship between UAE and India so much that everybody, I mean, if I'm sure you must be knowing there is a Baps Mandir which is being inaugurated in Abu Dhabi. I mean, can you imagine in an Arab world, Arab country, a mandir to be inaugurated, and that is possible only because of Sri Narendra Modi and Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed. So this is the relationship, we have developed between India and Dubai, and I'm happy that Indians are loving Dubai, and we also, at Dubai, UAE people also love to come to India and invest over here.
Thank you very much. Thank you everyone for being part of this panel, and thank you very much for telling us that indirect indication the Cognizant and Indian IT industry is headed. Next 5 years will be better for the Indian IT industry from last 5 years. Jenny, Mr. Winter, run by. Thank you very much. With that, I'll give it back to my colleagues. I think Sumit and Megha, they both are ready. And I know when we talk about India, even my partners sometimes they just listen so much about India. So it's okay, Sumit, it takes time because that's the India story we are talking about right now.
Didn't mean to disrupt you there, but then I think we are talking about disruptions in Nikunj. But enlightening speech that was, and a very interesting panel conversation. I think we should give them a loud round of applause for that.